Okay, so hello. My name is Kirstin Edwards, and I'm very excited to share with you my solution to the design challenge you guys sent me. And just to clarify, this is for the research and user experience design internship. So here we go. So the problem statement I received was, how will you go about building a B2B delivery app? And in some ways, my answer is very simple, and in other ways, it's a little complex. But to start off every project, what I like to do is build a roadmap. And this roadmap is essentially just an outline of every step of the process that I'll take while working on this project. And this is something I use because it just guides me, and it's something I can just check off every point along the way. The first thing I would do with Magaloop is really get to know you guys as you are in your current state. So at what phase is Magaloop functioning? What data have you already collected from your users? And what are your needs as a business? And how can we make those needs coherent with the needs of your users? After this initial kind of getting to know you phase, I would then really get started in the research process. So this includes surveys. So the surveys are really important because they help synthesize quantitative data points about our users. So for the case of Magaloop, this might be something like, what kind of inventory are the business owners purchasing? How often are they making these purchases? How long does it take them to do so? How many hours per week are they doing this? And of course, every survey starts off with a good screener to make sure I am interviewing or surveying the right people. So for the case of Magaloop, this is small business owners in Germany that regularly order fast-moving consumer goods. And as I understand, you guys are also moving to expand internationally, so perhaps we could survey people outside Germany as well. Just to give you guys an idea of what kind of questions I might ask in a survey, I might ask something like, how many businesses do you currently purchase your goods from? 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 plus. Another question I might ask is, how many hours per week do you spend purchasing inventory? 0 to 5 hours, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 plus. And again, just trying to get these very helpful quantitative data points about our users. So the next phase for me is the user interviews. And as a designer, this is one of my favorite parts of being a designer. I love interviewing users. So for Magaloop, I see really like 3 main groups of people I'd like to interview. This first group are business owners that do buy fast-moving consumer goods, but they're doing so on a per business basis. The next group of users would be business owners that already use Magaloop. And the next group of users would be people who are using these B2C apps like Think or Gorillas. As I understand, you don't have really direct competitors, but looking at the user experience of people that buy food from Think or Gorillas might be very helpful for us. So unlike the surveys, the user interviews are used for getting these really insightful qualitative data points about our users' experience. So what is their process? How do they feel? What are their current frustrations or pain points, and so on. So some questions I might ask in one of my interviews would be, what tools do you use to purchase your inventory? Can you describe to me or walk me through what you did the last time you needed to purchase more Coca-Cola for your store? And how did you feel during this process? So for each of these questions, there's probably going to be a series of follow-up questions that just sort of happen naturally as I conduct the interview. So after I've gotten all of this helpful quantitative and qualitative data, I have a lot of stuff to work with. So I then take this data and put it into an affinity diagram. And the affinity diagram is helpful because it helps me organize my takeaways here into some logical categories. So what might be some useful features? What are some current frustrations? What are things that they appreciate in the apps they're already using? And this again is just to sort of synthesize the insights from my surveys and interviews. So the next step of this synthesis, what I like to do are problem and hypothesis statements. So for the case of Magaloop, I just sort of made one up here. So a problem a user might be facing, which I come to understand after my surveys and interviews, might be the small business owner feels frustrated that he spends more than 20 hours per week placing orders for inventory. So now that I have a well-defined problem, I can hypothesize about how I want to solve this problem. So I might hypothesize something like, we believe adding a feature that allows the small business owner to purchase inventory from more than one vendor per order will decrease the amount of hours he spends buying inventory to less than 5 hours per week. So something kind of essential in the hypothesis statement is that it's measurable. So there's a way we can measure the success of our hypothesis. In this instance, if our user is only able to decrease the amount of time he spends per week buying inventory to about 15 hours, we know that we haven't really been so successful in how we choose to solve their problem. After getting to know my users better, I then try to understand your competitors. So as I said before, I know you don't have direct competitors that run this B2B model, but you certainly do have some people in a similar space doing a B2C model. So I might look at Gorillas, Blink, Bolt, and Lieferando. And this is helpful because I do a feature by feature comparison and then get to understand what are really like these core features of a delivery app. Which ones are essential, which ones might be extra that something like only Flink has, and what sort of combination of these features can make the best possible user experience. Something I also like to do is to make a user persona, and while this is fictional, it's very helpful for reminding myself that I am designing for a real person. So as I move on through the process, I really keep this fictional guy, Wade, in mind, and remind myself that Wade has some frustrations and some core needs that I'm trying to solve for him. So now we're moving more into the information architecture part of the UX design process. So something very essential is called a user flow, and this just sort of gives us an idea of what pages and what thinking a user goes through as they use our application. So let's say our buddy Wade, our coffee shop owner, wants to buy some other products for his shop, in this case, Red Bull. So he is already using Magaloop. So he's already gone through the onboarding process. When he opens the app, he's brought directly to the home page. He presses drinks, and then he's brought to the drinks page. Then he selects Red Bull. He's brought to the Red Bull page. And then he selects add item. He can alter the quantity of Red Bull he'd like to buy. And at this point, he can either go back to the home page and perhaps buy some other items, or he can go directly to his cart and place his order. Yeah, so user flows, again, super helpful, very important. And these are nice to do alongside a sitemap. And the sitemap is kind of just what it sounds like. It's just sort of the skeleton of your website or application that shows what pages you'll have and the navigation capability from one page to the next. Another thing that I personally like to do, just because I enjoy it and think it's quite helpful, is storyboarding. So I just put an example of the storyboard I made for another project here. As you can see, it's like pretty basic, but this just sort of helps form a narrative around the user's experience, and it helps pinpoint at what point in their process are they experiencing a problem, and at what point can I come in and solve this problem for them. Yeah, so after I've done all of this sort of backbone work in the UX design process, I can then move on to prototyping. So the first prototype I do is just a lo-fi prototype. In this, I just do pen on paper for the sake of speed and simplicity. Then I can move on to doing a mid-fi prototype. And this mid-fi, it really doesn't include the UI elements. It really focuses on like the core usability and core functionality of the application. And then I can test this with a few rounds of usability testing. And the reason to sort of hold off on adding the UI elements is that if you've already spent a lot of time perfecting the visual presentation of your application, it just makes it more difficult to go back and fix the functionality. So that's why I like to hold off to adding the UI elements until the hi-fi. So the hi-fi prototype is when I come in and really build something that's as close to its final form as it can be before it's ready for handoff. And this, again, I do some testing with my users, either remote or in person. And through this testing, I collect these very essential insights about the usability of Magaloop based on our users' feedback. So after iterating the design process, then I have a complete B2B delivery application that I can hand off to developers for actually building it. So that's just a summary of how I would build a B2B delivery application. So thank you guys so much for listening and for the time to share my process with you. Super excited about this opportunity, and I do hope to hear from you soon. If you want to check out any more of my work, you can see it at my portfolio website. So that's at kirstinedwards.design. So thank you again. Hope to hear from you soon, and bye-bye.